There was once a small village tucked away in a quiet valley where everyone knew everyone else's name. In the heart of this village lived an old lady who was known for one thing: her unwavering happiness. It didn't matter what the weather was like or what difficulties came her way. The old lady was always smiling. She had a calm, peaceful aura that seemed to make everything around her a little brighter. The villagers adored her, often stopping by her little house to ask for advice or just to talk about their lives. One afternoon, a young man from the village, curious about her eternal joy, decided to ask her what everyone else was too shy to. What was her secret? "How do you stay so happy all the time?" he asked, his voice filled with confusion. "No matter what happens, you never seem sad. Don't you ever feel bad when things go wrong?" The old lady smiled, her eyes twinkling with wisdom. "My dear," she said softly, "life is full of ups and downs. Some days are good, and some days are bad. But I've learned that happiness doesn't come from what happens around me. It comes from inside." The young man's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" he asked, clearly puzzled. "How can you be happy when bad things happen?" The old lady paused for a moment, her expression thoughtful. Then she began to tell him a story from her own life that had taught her the most important lesson she would ever learn. "When I was young, I had a family, my husband, my children. We weren't rich, but we were happy. We had everything we needed. But one day, my husband fell ill. We didn't have enough money for medicine, and despite everything we tried, he passed away." The old lady's voice trembled slightly as she continued. "It was the hardest day of my life. I cried for days, thinking I would never be happy again." The young man listened closely, captivated by her words, but also filled with a deep sense of sadness for her loss. He wanted to comfort her, but he could tell there was more to the story. The old lady's eyes met his, and she continued, "But after some time, I realized that being sad all the time wouldn't bring my husband back. My children needed me. I needed to find a way to be happy again. So I started to look at life differently. I understood that life is always going to have good and bad moments. And while I couldn't control what happened, I could control how I responded." The young man was silent for a moment, digesting her words. "But how did you do that?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. The old lady smiled softly. "Every morning when I wake up, I tell myself that today is a new day. And no matter what, I will find something to be happy about. Sometimes it's small. Maybe the sun is shining, or a flower is blooming, or perhaps I see a friend. There's always something to be thankful for." The young man thought deeply about her words, his mind racing. "But what if something really bad happens? How can you still be happy then?" The old lady's expression softened with a gentle understanding. "It's not easy," she said, her voice low. "But I remind myself that everything passes, even the bad times. They won't last forever. When something bad happens, I tell myself, this too shall pass. I focus on the good things I still have, my health, my friends, or even just the fact that I'm alive. Happiness is a choice, my dear. You can choose to focus on the bad and let it make you sad. Or you can choose to find the good in every situation, no matter how small. It's not always easy, but it is possible." The young man felt a strange sense of peace wash over him. He had never thought of life that way before. The weight of his own worries seemed to lift, just a little. He thanked the old lady, his heart a little lighter, and left her house with a new perspective. From that day on, the young man made a promise to himself to try the old lady's advice. No matter what life threw his way, he would find something good in every situation, just as she had taught him. Slowly, he began to notice the little things. The way the sun fell on his face, the sound of children laughing in the streets, the beauty of the trees that lined the village roads. Even when things went wrong, he would remind himself that there was always something to be thankful for. The word spread through the village. More and more people started to follow the old lady's advice. The village, once filled with stress and complaint, became a place of peace and joy. People smiled more, laughed more, and began to see life through a different lens. The old lady had shared her secret, and it had changed the lives of everyone around her. As the young man looked around at the village, he realized something profound. Happiness truly is a choice. It doesn't matter what happens to you, or how hard life may seem. The key to finding joy is in how you choose to respond, and in finding gratitude in the small things. The challenges of life may never go away, but a positive attitude helps us endure them with strength, and maybe even with a smile. And so, the village became a much happier place, all thanks to one wise lady who had taught them all the greatest lesson of all. Happiness comes from within,